right, let's try this. Can you hear me online now? One more try. How are we looking online? Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Still working out kinks, everyone. So yes, definitely stay tuned for more on that partnership. We're developing a great partnership with the Department of Health as well, and I think they might actually be on the stream tonight. So if they are, thank you for joining us online tonight. One other thing that we've been working on is CANM's board sent a letter recently to the Cannabis Control Division requesting that the most recent rules proposals be paused until they can develop a new contract for a new track and trace system. I think, as a lot of you know, there was an active RFP that was out for a new track and trace, and Metric had actually won that RFP. But through public records requests, we discovered that they were having issues with the cost proposal portion, and at the same time they were moving forward. CCD was moving forward with these new proposed rules. So the board, along with the Growers Breakfast Club, signed the letter. We sent it off to CCD last week, and no response yet. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll have more to discuss about that in the very near future. But for tonight, I want to introduce our first guest. His name is Frank Smith. He's with Pima Federal Credit Union, and he's got a quick 10-minute presentation. So we'll go through that. And Frank, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. My name is Frank Smith, again, Pima Federal Credit Union. I have been doing cannabis banking since 2015. Know the ins and outs, worked with lots of different businesses of all shapes and sizes.
Let's get you right in that mic. Swallow that thing.
Okay, I guess we have to get right up in there. Sorry about that. So I've been doing this for several years.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, a little confused. Started out with a community bank, West Valley National Bank in 2015. It was relaying to the ACB members, Aaron, Michael, that my first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash with the OCC examiner sitting across the desk from me. So, you know, I've traveled down that road. I know how to be successful. I know what it takes to, you know, help manage cannabis businesses. So I'm not sure what the slide deck looks like, but my first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash with the OCC examiner sitting across the desk from me. That's my tagline. So, you know, I've traveled down that road. I know how to be successful. I know what it takes to, you know, help manage cannabis businesses. There's a few things I really want to kind of bring up and discuss. Not sure what the slide deck looks like, but my first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash with the OCC examiner sitting across the desk from me. We do have a full suite of my banking products. So, you know, I've traveled down that road and consumer successful. I know what it takes to, you know, business manage. There's a few things I really want to kind of bring up and all different types of products looks like as we go and get into detail. My first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash. We also offer smart simple. We do have a full suite of my banking products. You know, I've traveled down that road and consumer successful. I know what it takes to. For those of you who may have had a hard time, things I really want to kind of bring up all different types of products issue and get into detail. My first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash. We also offer smart simple. We do have a full suite of so, you know, I've traveled down that road and consumer successful. I know what it takes. Worked in all aspects of business line of hard time. Things I really want to kind of string up all different types of products issue. My first deposit was a duffel bag full of cash. We also offer programs. My full suite of banking. So, you know, I've traveled down that road and consumer successful. I know what it takes. Worked in all aspects of business line of hard time. Unfortunately, stringing up all different types of products issue. My first first deposit was a duffel bag. We also have structured full suite of analyst banking. So, you know, I've been traveled down that road, emails, worked in all aspects, business law, right, wire transfer out, had a hard time getting online banking. We have a dedicated, my first deposit was a duffel bag. We also have structured full range of analyst banking. So, you know, I've been traveled down that road, emails, and then also we do our business law, right, wire transfer out, had a hard time getting online. We have a dedicated, my first deposit was a duffel bag. We also have structured full range of analyst banking. So, you know, I've been traveled down that road. All righty, next up. Oh, they rearranged the slides on me. This should have been first. Anyway, you could see me. I'm still sitting here. So, yes, I've been doing this a while. I kind of understand it. We do offer accounts in several markets now. This is our first foray into New Mexico. But we do have operations in Ohio, Maryland, Florida, and moving into Nevada and Illinois as well. So there's really no limit to where we can bank cannabis companies to some extent. We bring, you know, digital services and armored services to bear, stood up virtual markets or virtual vaults in certain markets, get the Fed vaults stood up, and we can service these clients, cannabis clients across the country to some degree. A lot of banks out there have gotten into this marketplace because they feel like it's an easy way to gain deposits and generate service charge income. That's never been my goal. I've been a community banker most of my life. This is my first foray into a credit union world, but community banks are there to service the community. So are credit unions as well, right? We're here to make sure that those that need banking services can get it. There shouldn't be a stigma or a check mark against you because of the industry you're in. And we want to make sure that we provide you the same level of services that you would find if you ran a dentist office or a car shop or whatever it is that you would do outside of cannabis. We also have referrals. We can help you out with merchant services to some degree. Those things could be tough, but you know, there are some answers out there. Accounting, audit services. I've been working in this. I know some people that can help if you need, accounting, audit services that are familiar with cannabis, 280E, all the ins and outs of that. You know, we're here to help. And legal services, right? I do know a few attorneys that can help you as well. So, you know, if there's anything you need, you can call me. I can provide referrals for you if necessary. All right, suite of products. Checking accounts, right? No brainer. Online banking, even remote deposit, ACH origination, wire origination, transfers between accounts. Debit cards, someone asked me about that earlier. We issue debit cards. You can use debit card to, you know, purchase things on Temu or Amazon or whatever it is you need. And of course, armored services. We work with Imperial Logistics, which outsources to a third party here. Cannot remember the name of the company, someone told me yesterday. Respond. So, you know, we'll have armored services to pick up your cash and bring it safely into a virtual vault. Lending. I know this is probably a hot topic for a lot of people out there. We do lending. We have commercial real estate loans, but we also will help out with some equipment financing if need be. I'm working with our senior management team to develop a small business line of credit specific to the cannabis business for, you know, $200,000, $250,000 line of credits or smaller. I know cash flows can be an issue. We seem to see net 30 turn to net 60 to net never sometimes, I guess. But, you know, I understand the issues there with trying to maintain cash flows. So I think a small business line of credit product would be very advantageous and could help out a lot of people. Right now, you know, these things are a little more difficult to come by, but we will have a rigid program for small business line of credits first of the year, I've been told. All right. Cost. Of course, everyone I think understands the breakdown. Tier ones are cannabis touching plants, plant touching businesses. We just reduced our fees to $250 per month. That is our flat fee for the compliance cost. There is sort of additional analysis fees. Those are pretty much pennies on the dollar, right, for deposits and ACH transactions you would find for most business accounts. There is a cash handling fee. Most of that goes to Armored Services, and that is 15 basis points for cash deposits. And that's it. We don't charge for ACH origination. I don't really charge for remote deposit. Of course, wire transfers do come at a fee, but additional products and services, we're not going to sit there and pile on top of it. You know, the 250 and the analysis, it covers our cost, right? Like I said, we do have a dedicated team to support this. It's not like we're going to open your accounts and, you know, hope you do well out there and never talk to you again. We understand that there's a need for banking services, and we do have a dedicated staff that comes with that flat fee, in a sense. If you have a cannabis license and you have other businesses that you need to bring on board, whether that's real estate holding companies or other sort of management companies or other things that you might have, we're not going to charge you for those accounts, okay? Our compliance costs us where the THC funds enter into the banking system. Once it passes through there, things get pretty simple, and we're not going to pile on fees on top of fees because you bring us additional accounts. I've been a relationship banker for 20 years, and that's sort of ingrained in what I do. I'm not here to service charge you guys to death. It's not our goal. And then, of course, tier threes, those are, you know, CBD accounts, those that are sort of outside of their capital accounts, real estate holding companies. If it's under common ownership, again, we're not charging for those accounts. But if you've got a CBD shop up the street and that's your only account with us, it is, I think we're doing $50 a month for those. So, you know, I've looked at a lot of other banks. I think we are pretty much the cheapest guy in town. If not, let me know. If you find someone cheaper, I'll go back and see what we could do. Again, customer service is a big part of what we do. It doesn't feel right to charge anyone $250 a month for a bank account. So I offset that to make sure that you have someone to talk to if you're having a problem. You know, we can make it pretty simple and easy. Just like you would any other business that you operate. That is our goal at the end of the day. So with that said, I guess questions at this point, Matt?
Yeah. We can take some questions if you want.
Yes.
Question was, can you deposit checks from your phone? The answer
Mobile
is
banking,
yes.
yeah, you could do that. You can even, well, new platform. Yes, you could deposit mobile banking. Trying to think if you could do ACH and wires, but I don't think so. Yes.
So the 15 basis points for the cash handling, is that on top of the cost for the armored pickup also?
We pay for all the cash deposit verification services. You guys have to pay for them to show up at your door for the logistics. So the trip charge, that is your contract with the Armored Services.
$50, that would probably be consistent, I would assume.
I've heard different rates. I'm not sure what the market here looks like for Armored Services. Typically, you know, the farther out you are from, you know, Albuquerque, my guess it's going to be more expensive. But I can't tell you exactly what those rates look like in town at the moment. If anyone has Armored Services at the moment, you know, they might be able to help provide some answers there.
One more question. Any more questions? All right. Frank, thank you for being here tonight. Thanks to Frank and Pima for sponsoring tonight's meeting. Appreciate
Happy
it.
to do it. Thank you. Here to talk later if anybody wants to talk.
Great. Thanks. Frank will be set up over here the rest of the night. So if you have any questions, want to chat, want to take advantage of their special rates while you're here tonight, please do. So I'd like to invite up Michael Beard and Aaron O'Donnell from the Association for Cannabis Banking. So get that, when you're speaking in the mic, get it nice and close to you and try and swallow the thing. If you need to adjust a little bit, that little silver knob there on the side will help adjust a little bit. So
Great.
perfect. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. This is yet another great relationship that we've started to develop. Michael reached out to me a couple of weeks ago. We had a great phone call, and we decided to invite them here to our first meeting to help kick us off. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting the bankers.
Absolutely.
Don't hold it against us.
So can you guys maybe start by giving us a little bit of background about what the Association for Cannabis Banking is, how you founded it, where you're from, all that kind of stuff?
So we launched the Association for Cannabis Banking on the heels of a couple companies we had launched previously. We've been doing online education for bankers, specifically through a company called Bankers Hub that we launched back in the early 2000s, and we sold about 2 years ago. We got into the cannabis side of it back around 2014, 2015, when the Federal Reserve was having annual meetings at their satellite office in Denver, and they wanted to live stream it. So we were learning a lot as we went in terms of the early challenges that the Fed was going through in banking cannabis and trying to get a third of the money supply out of Colorado and out of storage units and hotel rooms and every place else that they were stuffing cash. And we launched a satellite company. After we had done some training, we did the industry's first certification for bankers on cannabis banking back in March of 2020. We needed something to keep us busy during COVID. So this worked out really well. It proved to be so popular that we launched a first business, and then we launched the Association for Cannabis Banking after we relocated to New Mexico from Wisconsin, where everything is illegal in Wisconsin. So they said, you got to go to someplace where they don't see cannabis on your website and we'll shut you down.
And we love the cannabis industry. We're big fans personally.
And
So
New Mexico.
yeah, this was an industry that we really wanted to work with.
Yeah.
So we're really excited.
So we're based out of Placitas. We were able to get a nice building to rent, and we have a nice studio and office out of that, and have been doing multiple certifications and training since then. Most of it's been targeted towards the banking industry. I've been in banking, I got Frank beat, I guess. I started in banking back in '78. That'll show you how long I've been around. But been doing a lot of different aspects. Most of it's been around customer service and retail banking. So like what Frank was saying, I mean, we really focus on the customer aspect. But most recently, I also took on the position of Vice President of Treasury Services for Southwest Capital Bank, which turned out to be a really wonderful find because, as you would imagine, being kind of ingrained within the cannabis business with the association, it was not always going to be easy to find a bank that would allow me to continue doing that and at the same time manage all their treasury services for their commercial customers. But because they are one of the leading cannabis banks here in the state, worked out pretty well, and I'm pleased to be able to provide those services at the same time. What did I miss, Aaron?
Nothing.
Well, we're going to cover even more here. So banking is always a challenge for cannabis businesses, right? Get to the bottom of some of that tonight and dispel some myths and rumors and kind of dive into why things are done like they're done for cannabis banking. So one of the questions I've always received as a consultant is, why do we pay fees to give you our money? I think that's one of the number one questions that a lot of folks would like
Fair
answered.
question.
Because we're bankers. No. No, and it's a fair question, and honestly, the fees have come down quite a bit, as many of you might know if you've been in this for a few years. I mean, originally some of the fees were as high as $1,200, $1,300 a month.
Or more.
For just a plain checking account. I mean, that's absurd from any standpoint. One of the first things I'm doing at Southwest Capital is reviewing the pricing structure and the schedule of fees. And
Cost of compliance.
it's the cost of,
Yeah, that's, and you as part of the cannabis industry, you understand the compliance aspect of it is a really heavy lift. So In banking, it's the same thing. Compliance is very expensive. And unfortunately, bankers have to work with cash a lot of the time, which unfortunately you guys know too. So there's a lot of counting of the cash, there's a lot of manual processes that are involved, and that the cost of compliance in a nutshell would be why the fees are higher for
Yeah.
cannabis operators.
At Southwest, we have a special team who just does the Bank Secrecy Act and anti-money laundering just for cannabis customers alone. And that's not unusual. What we're trying to do is right-size the pricing so that going forward, I can't tell you exactly when, it's going to be soon. We're shifting, so commercial banks, I think this is kind of different, Frank, from what you were talking about with credit unions. We have something called corporate account analysis, which what it does for commercial accounts is it measures your activity on a regular basis. So how many deposits did you make? How many checks did you write? How much cash did you deposit? Things like that. And then there's a fee assessed, soft fee initially on those activities, and that's compared to what kind of balance did you keep. And you get an earnings credit for the balance that you keep, and let's say that equates to, because of the balances, it equates to $300. You can apply that $300, gets applied to the activity that you did. So the more activity you do, the more of a balance you want to keep and maintain in your checking account. But at the end of the month, there's a statement that's produced that shows, hey, this is how much activity you did, and this is how much you earned on the balances you keep. And then there would be a risk fee tacked on to that, probably around $250 a month. As Aaron said, that would be to account for the fact that we do have compliance people who will be working both with me and with you and your business to ensure that we're staying compliant. One of the things that Southwest Capital has always been very strong about is they want to maintain a strong posture to the federal regulators, the OCC, FinCEN, when they come in to audit this. And I'll tell you, it's super, super important, and that includes those ugly site visits and things like that. Because if the feds find something, a chink in our armor, or they find that we have cracks in our compliance, it doesn't stop with us. They're going to look at who our customers are. And so we want to make sure we are the first line of defense between you and the feds, so that if they see, and we use green check as well, if you see that they are performing well, they're compliant with the laws, the rules under FinCEN, the Cole memo and everything, then we get a good rating. And as far as the banking side is concerned, they leave you alone because we've got the tracking, the regulatory reports, and all of that in place. So that's part of what that's most of what that fee goes for, is to ensure that we are staying compliant so that you're staying compliant.
Well, sorry, as I like to say, we're in the compliance business. We're not in the cannabis business.
We are.
So compliance is definitely number one. What are some of the things that you look for as a bank that banks cannabis companies for the compliance side of things? And then what do you actually do with that information? Does it get put in a report and just kind of sit on a shelf and collect dust, or are the feds actually going through and looking at this stuff?
So maybe start with the onboarding process.
Well, and what I also wanted to mention, I think I may have skipped over at the beginning, is part of our mission statement as the Association for Cannabis Banking isn't to have our education and training begin and end at the banker. We have really were founded on the belief that this abyss, this chasm between banking and the cannabis industry needs to be narrowed and hopefully eliminated eventually, so that bankers don't perceive your businesses as any different than an auto dealership down the street or Taco Bell or anything else. That's going to take time, but it also means we're going to be educating you, like we're doing tonight, on why do bankers fill out SARs when you do a cash deposit? Why do they have to know this information? All of these things are things that if we educate you on, it will be less painful when you sit in front of your banker or go to apply for a new account. So back to your point, by educating you, well, the onboarding process and what do they do with that information? Well, there's something called enhanced due diligence, EDD. And that's different than customer due diligence, which bankers should be doing for all their businesses, ensuring that you are a legitimate business. You actually have a shop.
Mike, why is the cannabis industry subjected to enhanced due diligence?
Well, because we can't ignore the fact that you're still federally illegal.
And the cash.
And,
too.
well, yeah, I mean, starting with the legalities, but then the cash process,
Mm.
as you know, is dicey in terms of following the audit trail of the cash, making sure that it's legitimate, coming in from legitimate sources. Obviously, you know, there's always discussion about the cartels and things like that. So we want to ensure, just to make sure we're on the straight and narrow, that we're finding out, you know, when you open up your new account, they're going to ask you things like, what's your volume look like on a weekly basis? What do you anticipate? Inventory tracking and ensuring that everything, you know, checks off the boxes. So beneficial ownership, we need to know who owns your business, who has, you know, a share of your ownership in terms of, I think, 25%.
I think it's more than 20%?
Yeah.
20 or 25?
Yeah,
20?
and that's something that we really need to ensure before we open up your account and take this on. So it may seem intrusive asking all of these questions, but the example we've always given is, would you go to a doctor who doesn't feel comfortable asking you personal questions? Well, bankers have to see it the same way. I mean, we're bound to confidentiality, we're bound to all kinds of federal regs. So when we ask you these questions, we're not doing it to pry. We're doing it to ensure that, A, that the business is legitimate, that we've got the services and products necessary to meet your needs, and that on an ongoing basis, we're on the same page with respect to the fact that we need to feel comfortable that the money you're bringing in is indeed from the retail sales and those pieces. So there's definitely an aspect of this. And some bankers are good at it, and some bankers aren't good at it, and not making you feel like a criminal from the moment you walk in and bring your paperwork in. And a lot of this is a partnership. This is relationship building. It's exactly what Frank was talking about earlier. This is really establishing this symbiotic relationship, which hasn't really existed up till now for a lot of banks and CRBs.
Yeah. So that kind of leads me to my next question or topic, and that's safer banking. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the history of safer banking and how it could potentially impact the cannabis industry if it ever goes anywhere, which is highly unlikely at this point.
Where's the crystal ball? Who had it last?
Well, you have SAFE, SAFER, and States. States hasn't made it out of committee in either House or the Senate. And
So SAFE has been passed in the House multiple times, maybe 7 times, and it's been killed in the Senate every single time.
And we're talking in federal Congress right now too, the guys that aren't doing anything right now.
aren't doing anything.
Right, exactly. Do we get to prorate our taxes, by the way? But so the Senate has proposed, and it got out of the Senate Banking Committee, but it never got to the House. So the Senate started a bill called SAFER. And Michael definitely talked more about the nitty gritty, but one of the things that we talk about as bankers is that no banker has ever gone to prison for banking cannabis, period, end of story. Now, if you mess with Bank Secrecy Act or any of the, regulations, you may be fined. But we as a banking industry are asking ourselves, what difference does safer actually mean? Does it really matter? Bankers and credit unions can bank cannabis safely, and they can bank it legally, period. We don't need safe or safer.
But at the same time, a lot of banks and businesses want that stamp of approval, which SAFE and SAFER, until we get actually into deregulation, and we can talk about re-regulation a little bit, but until we get into that, the problem we have with SAFE and SAFER is it leaves out some stuff. And while they both can put kind of the stamp of approval on, ironically, that bill that didn't make it out of committee, the States Act, is the one that addresses 280E, it's the one that addresses interstate commerce, it's the one that addresses a lot of the stuff that MSOs and others are going to need and aren't addressed sufficiently through the SAFER Act. So I think, a lot of this, let's face it, a lot of this is window dressing. You pass it, who knows if it's going to pass? I don't even know if they're ever going to reopen. So, but when you get in the SAFE and SAFER Acts, you start to realize that these are kind of window dressing. They don't solve every problem. They're not going to make your life easier. What it may do, ideally, is open up some more institutions to getting involved. And ideally, kind of what Frank was saying, we need some more confidence as bankers to protect us before we start doing like unsecured lending, even lines of credit, things like that. It's one thing for you to give us your money. It's another thing for us to give you our money.
Yeah, and bankers are conservative. So if safe and safer passed, I do believe more banks and credit unions would get into the business, which would be good news for the industry because that would bring pricing down, you know, that would start level setting pricing a little more and begin normalizing. So there is an advantage to that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you both mentioned lending a little bit. So as cannabis business owners, and a lot of times, especially early in the industry and in other states, it was difficult, if not impossible, to get consumer loans, mortgages, car loans, all those types of things. So what makes our industry more challenging in that regard? And what are some things that can be done to kind of loosen the lending up for people in our industry?
Well, I think part of it is, and you know, talking about New Mexico, and we talked about this a little bit on our phone call last week. And I'll say this as being kind of like the newbies to New Mexico. This state is frickin' over licensed beyond belief. It's just, you know, the margins are paper thin, and that's part of the problem that as a banker we have to sit there and look at going, when we first moved here, I'll give an example. We first moved here, and living up in Placitas, we go to Bernalillo a lot, as you would imagine. And we got friendly with one of the dispensaries there, Minerva. If you know Minerva, it's now called Urban Wellness or High Desert Relief or who knows what it is. It's not Minerva anymore. And, you know, we saw that over by Santa Ana Star Casino where there used to be an IHOP. If you saw it's Mary Jane's. It took 2 years for Mary Jane's to even put a sign up, and then 6 months later I saw a for lease sign, although I think they're still open. But I mean, that's what we're dealing with. So the lending side of it, you know, oftentimes we're talking about longer durations, multi-year durations on a payoff if we're talking about a construction loan or something like that. And the question we still have to answer, the fact is we've got to get past this point of instability with these businesses before bankers are going to get comfortable doing more traditional business loans, because the duration and longevity of some of these businesses can be measured probably in weeks. And that's not one of these things that makes bankers really sleep well at night. So getting some stability in the cannabis market, especially here in New Mexico, I think is going to be critical. And we've been working with Santa Fe, with people like Representative Romero and others, to try to affect some change with CCD on the licensing. And, you know, we talked about on the call about whether CCD should require a bank account first, which I understand was kind of how it was originally. You know, all of these things are still in discussion, and until those things get resolved, I mean, Southwest is a commercial bank, which means we don't really do consumer loans like a credit union would. We do construction loans for cannabis. We will do some equipment loans, kind of basically, if you fold, what can we sell?
Right. Those
yeah.
those collateralized loans are really popular, but, you know, line of credit, you know, operating lines of business, those are harder loans to get.
Yeah.
Because they don't have anything that you can sell, that a bank can sell a collateral to back up.
Now, one of the reasons that I liked taking on this role, in addition to working with the association, is because I am a big advocate to get more respectability, more credibility, and for you to be able to manage your ebb and flow on your cash flow. So one of the things I am is a strong lobbyist for us taking a look at the businesses on a risk assessment side and saying, let's take a chance. Let's try this. We're not there yet as a company. I've only been there less than 2 months. But I'm a big advocate of this, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's a good fit. Because, I mean, lending is a tough area. It really is. And I don't think you're going to see a whole ton of banks, probably more credit unions, I would imagine, because they tend to be a little bit more
Member-focused.
member-focused, consumer-focused than corporate focused the way we are.
That definitely makes good sense from a business standpoint. So I guess a little bit what I'm hearing is we need more stability in the market, and we need businesses to have a longer track record of being in business and actually making money to make
Yeah.
lending possible. That's kind of it in a
Yeah.
nutshell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
we got to strengthen New Mexico sales. If you saw the reports on RLD on the licensed business is down 6.2% last month. In September, I haven't seen October's numbers out yet, but you know, I mean, that's not the direction we want to feel comfortable in. But when you sit there, and I've heard the national reports come out, and they're like, oh my God, what happens when you know, Bud drops down to $70 or $80? And I thought, Christ, we bought for $50 2 weeks ago. Those margins, I mean, I don't have to tell you, you know what your margin is, you know what you're living on. Exactly, that's the problem, zero. And we've got to bolster that. So it's not just a banking issue. Banks are going to do what they can do, but we've got to set a threshold that makes it doable, and I think we can only do that through Santa Fe, to be really honest. And that's why, as an association with an association, maybe there's strength in numbers here.
Yeah, that's something that we say all the time as not just an association and a board, but as we're out talking to people, there's strength in numbers. And that's not just individuals, that's all of our businesses, that's association to association, that's banker to banker. You know, it's truly, in my time working with the legislature in Santa Fe, the only real way you make a change is to all come together and work together on these things. So we're definitely looking forward to working with you guys throughout here. But you know, one other thing that I really wanted to talk about is payment processing. We see so many issues still with payment processing. Visa and MasterCard have kicked a lot of dispensaries in the teeth with their shutoffs. We've got basically your what do we even call it at the register? Pinless
Point of sale.
ATM or
Yep,
something like that. So
It's
what-
cashless.
Cashless, that's right. What are some things that we can do to fix that? I mean, I'm assuming it's really tied in with a lot of the other banking issues, but are there a few pieces here and there that can be kind of pulled to fix that issue?
It is painful. We've actually signed a letter to Visa and MasterCard to ask them to consider allowing what it is. It's basically Visa and MasterCard are called network branded cards. So you can get a card that's not Visa and MasterCard, but those are very unusual. Like your bank is usually going to issue you a Visa or MasterCard as a debit card. So it's a real problem. Banks have stepped up and said, we don't care that it's federally illegal. We're going to step up and we're going to bank this industry. We have told Visa and MasterCard that they can do the same thing, but we're not getting any movement here. It's prolific. Planet 13 in Nevada, the biggest dispensary in the world, I think, they still do cashless ATMs. Visa and MasterCard have written letters to the banking industry saying, stop doing this, but it's everywhere. It's prolific. So they're kind of kicking everybody in the teeth right now. Payments is, because of the cash issue, payments is the biggest problem in banking cannabis. And it's something that, you know, you can use other merchants, banks. They have merchant services that can help you. But the consumer really just wants to use their debit card. And and for the most part we can. I mean, I use it. I've even used a credit card. I always like to see what I can
Get away
with. But yeah, payments is a real problem. And one of the things that I think is really interesting and I wanted to share, the Bank Secrecy Act was enacted in the 70s,
Early
60s.
70s, 71.
Bank Secrecy Act, BSA. Has anybody heard of that? That is the fundamental compliance regulation that goes into banking cannabis. And part of it is when the terrorists in the 9/11 attack, when the FBI looked where the money was, they found that these terrorists were depositing insane lump sums of cash into the American banking system. That's how the 9/11 terrorists got all that money there. So after 2001, banks said, no, we're not going to take any more than $10,000 in cash. So that regulation also caused a lot of issues for banks taking cash and caused a lot of issues. It also protects us, but it's something that makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, the Patriot Act came out right after 9/11. If you remember, KYC, Know Your Customer, was a real crackdown on people opening up ghost accounts, things like that, that didn't trace back to anywhere. And sadly, or maybe not sadly, maybe it's actually positive, when the cannabis industry emerged in the 19 teens, or in the 20 teens, early on, 2012, 2013, it was running afoul of those laws because of the cash requirements. And I'll do a plug for our book. We wrote the book Cannabis Banking on Amazon that covers a lot of these things. And we tried to write it at a very beginning, intermediate, and advanced level because we also wanted cannabis businesses to read, to understand, and not take offense at some of the paperwork that's being filled out by your institutions. It's just required. And if they fail to do so, the penalties are severe and include imprisonment. And the last thing I want to see is a bunch of tellers go to prison, to be honest. But I mean, this is all back to money laundering. It goes, if you watch Breaking Bad, I mean, that stuff was real. I mean, that's what's going on. And, the more that we can accept that, the better. But if we can find alternatives, I mean, as you said, cashless ATM, things like that, people do it. I mean, we do it. We see it. It gets done everywhere. I mean, people are taking it. If you get caught, you're going to get nailed under your agreements. And Visa and MasterCard, I mean, one of our instructors with Bankers Hub that we've known for years is now the head of MasterCard Small Business North America. And we've talked with her on occasion to try to see, hey, could we at least get you to come to our conference and talk?
We have a whole bunch of small businesses that you might want to talk to.
Or that they'd want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what we're about. We're about trying to expose some of these people who are at the top of the pyramid to folks like yourselves at our conference. I mean, we had Erica speak at our conference because we want the bankers to put faces with these issues. And that's why we kind of walk an interesting line with the association, because we can get away with that. We want to have bankers, like myself, I guess, hear your stories and understand what's going on. And that's the lobbying that we need both in DC and here in Santa Fe as well, is they need to hear your stories.
So, listening to you on some of this, it sounds like it's actually a bit of a circular issue, right? Like we've got the cash issue, and so we really have to deal with that to loosen up
Right.
the rest of the banking. But we've got these other laws in the way that really make it difficult for cannabis to kind of get the cash issue act together.
And the fintech's trying to solve the problem with closed loop payment systems and things like that, private issued cards. But consumers aren't really thrilled with having yet another piece of plastic in their wallet saying, oh, I'm going to go to Urban Wellness, so I need this card, or I'm going to go to High Desert Relief and I need that card, and you end up with the whole stack of like, oh, I'll collect the whole series and I'll win a prize.
Right. Consumers just want an easy payment channel, and that's fair.
Right. We don't have the solution yet, but I mean, the best way
We know
can,
the problem.
well, and they're not going to sit on the sidelines forever because, I mean, first of all, they're collecting the merchant fees from the cashless ATMs anyway. Let's just really be honest. It's not like they're an innocent third party not making,
Wink,
money
wink,
off of
yeah.
this. They're making money. It's like the IRS taxes you even though they consider you illegal. Welcome Al Capone.
Right.
This is one of those really weird dualities that we live with in this country where you're doing something that's illegal, but the government will arrest you because you didn't pay taxes on doing something illegal.
Right, yeah, and yet we still have 280E to deal with too.
Yes.
And we still have 280E, which you don't get
Giant
any
issue.
benefit
Which
on.
is really,
Nothing.
yeah,
Yeah,
horrible.
we're so whoa, sorry guys.
I'm awake.
Chat on YouTube. Please start thinking about some questions. We're gonna go to the audience here in just a minute, but I wanted to hear from a banker's perspective your thoughts a little bit on 280E and what are some things we can do to kind of mitigate that a little bit as businesses.
Hard to say. I mean, obviously the legislation, certainly the States Act addresses it. Not much we can do at the state level as far as the federal treatment of expenses and deductibility goes. It is inherently unfair. I mean, the fact that they're collecting taxes on your business, but not letting you deduct the operating expenses of your business is inherently unfair. Beyond, the usual, contact your congressman or woman, contact this. I mean, we partner with a company called Emerging Markets Coalition. They're a
503C.
501c3, thank you. It's
Thank you,
late, I'm
Erica.
sorry, it's been a long day. 501c3 charity. But they do a lot of advocacy in DC. They work with people on the Hill. That's how we're going to do it. We've just got to keep beating these people up. The problem is we can't compete with the distractions going on right now in DC. And without even anyone working in DC right now, yet still pulling six figures, I don't know how that works, but
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
We always think, no, does anybody really care about cannabis in Congress? But they sure care enough to vote it down all the time. So, and I don't know another issue where most people agree in this country that it should be legalized. Show me another issue where as many people agree. And it's just a very tone deaf and frustrating thing. We want it. Most people are okay with it. We just, for some reason, this issue, when it comes time to vote it down, it just keeps getting voted down.
It always gets voted down. When we started legalization in New Mexico, even back in 2007, when we were working on the Linden Air and Compassionate Use Act, legal cannabis polled as a 72% issue statewide.
Wow.
72% statewide. It's gotten even higher since then, as have a bunch of us. But, it's just something that's really common sense these days. And, we as a community need to do a better job of pushing our legislators to do the right thing for our businesses and for our community. So we're gonna take some questions from the audience now. If you have a question, hold up your hand. Veronica's got an iPad with a microphone attached, so folks streaming watching the stream online can hear the questions as well. And chat, please drop your questions in because we'll be able to answer some of those too. So you want to hold the camera up, make sure everybody can online can see.
On transactions? How does that work?
Yeah, sorry, a little bit louder.
Yeah, so recently I've been learning more about cashless ATMs and how retailers are able to make money back on each transaction. How does that work?
So real quick, the question was on cashless ATMs. How do retailers make money off that?
Yeah. My understanding is there's potential to make
Yeah.
Well, if they're doing the cashless ATM at your point of sale, I mean, you're going to make your interchange fee off the transaction as you would if you were 7-Eleven or Taco Bell. It's a percentage of what you get on every sale. So when you do an ATM withdrawal, you pay so much for both to your bank for doing an ATM withdrawal that's on an ATM that's not theirs. The ATM owner also gets a percentage, usually a couple pennies on the dollar.
If you're charging a $3 fee at the ATM, you might get 50 cents.
Yeah. It's not a huge fee, but if you're conducting it at the point of sale, then the dispensary would get it. But generally speaking, the dispensary's name is not the dispensary, it's a...
Explain what getting it at the point of sale means. So there's either
At the
an
cash register.
ATM machine literally in your lobby, or if you're doing cashless ATM, you're using just a payment portal. And if you're doing a cashless ATM on that payment portal, that's where the interchange fee will.
Right. So if your
Will
sale
happen.
came to $65, you round it up to 80 or 70, whatever you round it up to, and then they get the cash back. and then you make the interchange fee 50 cents or whatever the small fee is. So, I mean, there is some income associated with it. But again, the traceability of the transaction, you know, that's where it gets a little tricky because, again, Visa or MasterCard that detects you on writing their rails on that transaction will tell you point blank you're violating their terms and conditions.
I think we've got a question up here up
Erica?
front.
So I can actually tell you how it works in our business. So we work with BioTrack Pay, BT Pay, and it's just like you see the swipe machine at our counter. When we set up our contract with them, we pay. You either have to pay for the equipment. Some of them, there's a bunch of different things that you can negotiate with these different places. And so when you set up the contract with them, they ask you, do you want to have any of that transaction fee come to you? Because our base is $2.75 for every transaction. If you want to add 25 cents to it, so it's a $3 transaction fee, they'll split that off to you. So that's how and we didn't do it because I don't want to charge anybody more for something they're already being taxed on. But that's where that happens, is in the contract with the actual merchant service. And a bunch of them just do different fees and pricing. So same situation.
You're not going to get rich off of it, but it helps.
We have it here. Ours is just built in, and so yeah, we have it here. Ours is built in. So yeah, we have an ATM option or the cashless ATM at the actual counter.
So does that come like in a dividend check, or like does it get credited to your fees? How does that?
It's credited to your statement.
Yeah, they just deposit it. It's an ACH just with our normal.
Okay, so that's,
with our money.
is that pretty typical across different services, or is that like it depends on vendor? Like, obviously, there's BioChat, there's other ones and stuff.
Yeah, that's typical,
Yeah.
where the fee's just credited to the account.
And that's not unusual. I mean, all industries do the same thing. I mean, it depends on if you're with Bank of America, and then they have their own merchant services division, and usually the processing would take place on their own terminals and that. But since we're small businesses, usually banking with state chartered banks or credit unions, you know, they don't have that kind of influence. So usually it's a third party, as Erica said.
A boutique merchant processor, essentially what that does. But you know what we call it is point of banking, right? So essentially it's a cash transaction that's being tracked through the payment rails and the card systems, right? And so I used to actually be a federal regulator with the Federal Reserve, so I have a lot of experience in terms of what you guys are going through. We can fight in the parking lot later, but I left that industry, obviously, but I wanted to ask you, I think there's all these payment systems and payment things that are happening that are pretty much workarounds, right? Do you guys see an end to that coming? Do you guys see a straightforward path to where it's a normal consumer transaction? Because I know from my experience, I think we do a great job with point of banking. I think it's nice for the consumer, but at the end of the day, it's still somewhat of a workaround on the payment rail, right? So,
And I think if Visa and MasterCard came online, that would solve a lot of the problems. Safe and Safer is not going to change payments.
No.
Visa and MasterCard are going to change payments. And they have said that they're waiting until it becomes federally legal.
So
the workarounds are going to...
And the longer
with
that
us.
this stays illegal, the more you're going to see fintechs and others, you know, crypto and things come into here because they stay off the rails. I mean, Bitcoin, things like that. I mean, already we're seeing that if you go to these conferences like MJ Biz and stuff like that, you're going to hear a lot. I'm sure this year's next month's just going to be full of crypto alternatives and things like that. I mean, it gets kind of weird.
Yeah, ACH and wallet are
yeah.
another alternative. But we've said it before here tonight, that's not what the consumer wants. You know, like if I wanted an ACH wallet, I'd have to have a special app on my phone. I just want to use my card, that's all. So there are workarounds. Crypto is certainly ACH and wallet, but that's not what the consumers want to use.
No, it's like ACH and wire transfer. You know, we offer that to businesses, cannabis businesses, as a way of mainly making your payments to vendors and suppliers and things like that. So you don't have to take a bag of cash and leave it underneath the bench, you know, at some stadium, and they'll pick it up later. You know, it really does get weird when you listen to some of these stories. The sooner they can start to take risk themselves, because I guarantee once Visa and MasterCard gets into this, the fees are going to get into this too, and they're going to make a fortune off of it. And, you know, I look at that as really offensive because they're not the ones who took the risk. You guys are. You know, the companies that launched 10, 12, 15 years ago are the ones that are the true innovators within this industry. They're the risk takers, as are the people in this room. I kind of resent the fact when AWS or, you know, Amazon and Walmart and all of that, we know they're going to come into this. The money is too rich for them to sit on the sidelines. Once they are comfortable enough that the legality issue is kind of on the sidelines. So we're looking at this, you know, just telling Visa and MasterCard, just, you know, get off your duff and help support the industry so we can get some of these fake fintech solutions. Because when you go to these conferences, I mean, out of 100 people, you'll find 90 of them swearing that everybody else is illegal, but my system is perfectly legal. Theirs isn't.
Right.
And you go to the next booth and they'll say the same thing, and so on and so on. So we want to get out of the circus. You know, this industry is too lucrative. It's too important for us to be playing these games, and you're hearing it from a banker. So
I just want to be able to walk into a dispensary and use Apple Pay.
Oh,
I mean,
that would be nice.
Tap
that'd
your
be
wallet.
so
Yeah.
nice. So
Yeah.
we're going to take a question from chat. It's from John P. And his question is, as we see federal legalization, are we going to see stricter laws with banking and more fees? I know you've touched on that a little bit, but, you know, let's touch on it some more.
with legalization?
Yes.
No,
with
With federal legalization.
Yeah, I think
What's going to happen with banking?
Yeah, I think you're going to see fees drop. I think the more competitors that you have within the market, the better. When U.S. Eagle and Southwest were looking to merge for the last year, my major concern, and this was even before I had anything to do with anybody, we were just running our association. The one thing that came to my mind is the last thing the state needs is one less competitor. You know, let's go from U.S. Eagle and Southwest down to one. Well, that merger fell through. So we still have two, but you get the idea. The more, you know, competition's good. Now, too much competition, as we're all seeing, isn't good. If, you know, more dispensaries than we have McDonald's is not a good thing. But if we can get a few more banks in here, credit unions, more credit unions involved than just a couple, U.S. Eagle and that, I think it's going to make a difference. I think it really will. And I think once federal legalization, not even federal legalization, guys, you know, the Safe and Safer Act at least sends a message. And this message has been lacking for at least the last 18 months, and that is there's no freaking discussion going on in Washington about legalizing cannabis and where we stand, because they're too busy doing whatever it is that they're doing. I don't know
Or
what that
not,
is, but they're
yeah.
doing a lot of it. But if we can see some positive movement on Safe and Safer, I think you're going to find it'll start to loosen up the industry. People are going to start to say, okay, the industry is not dead, it's not comatose, it's alive. But we've got to see something positive going on, and it can't just come out of Santa Fe. It has to come out of DC.
Has to come out of DC. There's a lot that has to come out of DC, other than the shit that's coming out of there now.
Yeah, we know what's coming out of there, out of that end.
No more.
I saw the video.
Yeah, exactly. We've got time for 2 more questions. Any other questions here in the audience? Chat, do you have anything at all? Any other questions? All right. Well,
right.
seeing none, Michael, Aaron, thank you so much for helping us kick off our monthly meetings. Frank, thanks to you and Pima for being here and sponsoring the meeting tonight. We look forward to seeing everybody at the next monthly members meeting. We host these every first Wednesday of every month. So December is our next one up, right here at Black Market Dispensary and Lounge, and hopefully we'll be able to consume at the next meeting. Michael, Aaron, you have anything else to close out?
I did on one thing. We were talking a little earlier. We'd love to hear from all of you and the folks online about, from your perspective, are there training that the Association for Cannabis Banking can be doing directed towards you? What would you like to know more about? These are great questions you've asked tonight. We do webinars. We do almost 100 webinars a year. Again, a lot of them are on more technical things on the Bank Secrecy Act, money laundering, things like that. But we've got a cadre of experts, thought leaders within the industry who can speak on a variety of topics. So I would ask, all of your listeners, let us know if there's topics, and we'll get them out there. And our membership and all of that is priced primarily for the institutions that have money and can afford it. But for the rest of you, let us hear from you, because we want to make sure that we're addressing your needs. Our challenge is bringing these two groups together.
And we would do free training for the CRBs. So we also have a conference in July. Erica was there last year. We do a very discounted rate for CRBs. It's not the same as the banking rate. And I just want to say that we really love you guys, and we're so glad that you're here. And we would have loved to, like the first time we went to a dispensary, we were like, oh my God, we want to do this. But we are bankers, so we have to stick to what we know. But who knew that cannabis banking would be such a thing? And just hang in there. It is a great industry, and I think that at some point we're going to get some relief here and find this industry gets the fair shot that it deserves. And to see the creativity of this industry is really so awesome. And we just want you guys to run free. So we're going to be pushing the banks and the credit unions. We're telling them that they can absolutely bank you, and they should. So I just wanted to say that.
And we do have an information sheet for you, for anybody who would like to have one, with our contact information, the types of programs that we offer.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time, and everybody else does here too. One final note of housekeeping before we close tonight and move to the mingling part, which I know y'all will enjoy. We have a survey, a policy survey up on our website. So if you go to nmcannabis.org, right there on the front of the website, you'll see a policy survey. That policy survey will help inform our policy committee about issues that the cannabis industry cares about. So please log on to our website, go give us your answers to the questions that we're asking. We'd really appreciate it because it will help make a difference in the industry. So thank you all for being here tonight. Grab some pizza and let's mingle a little bit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.